watch my nose. Just done. Yeah. There. Look.
MASH was not just a dark war comedy. It was a wild, unruly experiment that shattered every rule Hollywood trusted. It was not polished but jagged, not controlled but explosive, not respectful but brutally honest. Behind the camera, chaos erupts every single day. Actors ignore call sheets. Entire scenes collapse in improvisation. The studio panics as dailies arrive looking like accidents, not art. Crews battle heat exhaustion, blood-soaked practical effects, and a director who refuses to follow the script. Today we reveal 20 weird facts about MASH. Fact number 20. The film opens with a song that the writer never meant to be used. MASH begins with the haunting track "Suicide is Painless." What audiences do not know is that the song is written by a 14-year-old boy. Director Robert Altman needs lyrics that feel bleak and absurd. He jokes to his teenage son Mike that the lyrics should be so simple that even a kid can write them. Mike writes them in 5 minutes. It is not meant to be serious. It is a parody gesture. But then everything shifts. Altman reads the lyrics and realizes they perfectly capture the film's surreal blend of death humor and despair. The studio questions the tone, but Altman stands firm. The film launches with a theme created almost by accident, and its strange, offbeat power becomes legendary. Fact number 19. Robert Altman declares war on the script. The script for MASH exists, but Altman barely uses it. He believes the chaos of war should feel uncontrolled, not orderly but unpredictable. So he invites his actors to improvise constantly. Whole scenes erupt without formal rehearsals. Dialogue overlaps. Characters interrupt each other. It feels wild on set. Studio executives panic when they watch the early dailies. They fear the movie is a disaster because nothing sounds clean or controlled. Yet Altman insists that the messiness is the point. It reflects the madness of surgical tents pushed beyond human limits. What audiences eventually see is not a scripted war comedy, but a loose, thrashing portrait of people trying to stay sane. The experiment pays off. The improvisation becomes one of the film's defining innovations. Fact number 18. The Army hates the film and refuses to cooperate. When the production team approaches the United States Army for assistance, the response is brutal. Officials dislike the script. They believe it mocks military order, discipline, and morality. Not satire, but sabotage. They refuse to provide equipment, uniforms, or advisors. The production scrambles. Prop teams scavenge gear from surplus yards. Designers create uniforms from scratch. Weapons experts work alone to ensure authenticity. The lack of military support forces the production to build its own world, and ironically, that freedom strengthens the film. It becomes rawer, rougher, less polished. Audiences assume the Army supports the picture because of the realistic details. In reality, everything on screen is created under pressure. The rejection inadvertently becomes the movie's secret advantage and fuels its rebellious energy. Fact number 17. Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould try to fire Altman. Production tension erupts early. Stars Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould grow frustrated with Altman's improvisational approach. They fear the movie looks chaotic and unprofessional, not controlled but collapsing. They privately approach the producers and demand the director be removed. They argue that Altman is losing the cast and destroying the film's structure, but the producers refuse. Altman learns about the attempted coup long after filming wraps, and he never fully forgives it. Ironically, the chemistry between Hawkeye and Trapper thrives precisely because of that tension. The actors push against the madness. Altman pushes back with creative force. The conflict shapes the film's rhythm. What audiences interpret as rebellious spirit is partially born from genuine hostility simmering behind the camera. Fact number 16. The OR scenes are realistic because actors watch actual surgery. To achieve authenticity, Altman sends his cast to observe real battlefield-style surgery. They stand in operating rooms witnessing trauma procedures that doctors perform under intense pressure. The experience shakes them. Blood sprays, instruments clatter, bodies tremble. It is not Hollywood spectacle. It is human fragility under fire. The actors return to set changed. Their performances in the OR scenes gain a strange calm because they have seen the real thing. They joke less. They move with precision. They respect the space. Viewers later praise the surgeries for their realism without knowing the emotional cost behind them. The authenticity is not just makeup and practical effects. It is memory, and it anchors the film in a truth that few war comedies ever attempt. Fact number 15. The football game was pure chaos behind the scenes. The famous football game feels wild and comedic, but filming it is a logistical nightmare. Altman wants the game to look uncontrolled, Not staged, but frantic. Not choreographed, but explosive. So he refuses detailed play plans. He tells the actors to simply play. The extras are real athletes who take the game seriously. Bodies collide hard, tempers flare, injuries mount. The stunt team races everywhere trying to prevent disaster. Altman films with long lenses, so cast members never know which plays will appear in the final cut. The confusion becomes part of the design. What looks like comic madness on screen is genuine tension between performers trying to win a game they barely understand. The realism comes from exhaustion, sweat, and bruises, not storyboards. Fact number 14. The PA system announcements were entirely improvised. The public address announcements in the film have a strange, deadpan rhythm that audiences find unforgettable. What many do not know is that almost all of them are improvised. Altman hires voice actor David Arkin and gives him only a loose idea of what each scene needs. No script, no structure, just mood. Arkin records lines in a small booth near the set, reacting in real time to scenes he glimpses through monitors. Some announcements are absurd, some are dark, some feel like emotional breakdowns disguised as military orders. Altman uses them as a soundtrack to chaos. The announcements stitch scenes together and break them apart. They become the film's cynical heartbeat. A small improvisational experiment transforms into one of the most iconic sonic signatures of 70s cinema. Fact number 13. The famous shower scene was never meant to be a sexual moment. The shower reveal involving Margaret Houlihan becomes one of the most controversial moments in the film. Many viewers assume the scene is staged for cheap laughs, but behind the camera, the motivation is different. Altman wants to expose authority, not a woman. Not desire, but hypocrisy. Houlihan represents strict order, discipline, and moral judgment. By pulling up the tent and exposing her vulnerability, the crew characters rebel against her rigid leadership. But filming the scene creates tension. Actress Sally Kellerman feels uncomfortable and nearly refuses. Altman adjusts angles, lighting, and blocking until she feels safe. When the scene finally plays on screen, it becomes a commentary on the cruelty of soldiers under stress and the fragility of authority in a collapsing world. Fact number 12. Altman uses overlapping dialogue to break Hollywood rules. Hollywood's sound mixing rules demand clarity, clean lines, sharp cuts, not noise, but order. Altman rejects all of it. In MASH, he uses overlapping dialogue that fills scenes with competing conversations. Surgeons talk over nurses, loudspeakers interrupt jokes, casual chatter collides with emergency orders. The studio begs him to fix the audio. They fear audiences will complain that they cannot follow the lines. Altman refuses. He says war does not wait for quiet moments. He wants viewers to feel overwhelmed. The technique becomes groundbreaking. Filmmakers later adopt this layered sound style in dramas, comedies, and war epics. What begins as a rebellion against studio polish becomes one of the most influential sound innovations of the decade. Fact number 11. The film almost gets shut down before shooting even begins. Few fans realize how close MASH comes to never being made. 20th Century Fox suffers financial panic after the massive failure of Cleopatra. The studio slashes budgets, cancels films, and demands safe commercial projects. MASH looks risky, too dark, too cynical, too strange. Executives try to bury it quietly. Altman fights back and argues that audiences are ready for a raw, irreverent look at war. He assembles a cast of rising actors who agree to low pay just to get the film launched. Even then, producers consider shutting it down during pre-production. Only a last, minute approval saves it. MASH begins its life as a near casualty of studio fear and becomes a revolutionary success born from uncertainty. Fact number 10. Altman hides cameras to capture raw, unplanned moments. Altman wants actors to forget the camera entirely. Not performance, but presence. Not acting, but existing. So he hides cameras in unexpected places, behind equipment carts, inside tents, between surgical cabinets. As a result, cast members never know when a scene begins or ends. This creates spontaneous reactions that studio films rarely capture. Moments of frustration, laughter, or fatigue slip into the final cut unchanged. Some actors complain that they feel exposed. Others love the freedom. Viewers sense authenticity, even if they cannot explain why. The technique becomes a trademark of Altman's style. And here is your mid-roll moment. Go ahead and like and subscribe because the next 9 facts take you deeper into the chaos than ever before. Fact number 9. The blood effects are so realistic that crew members get sick. The surgical scenes in MASH shock audiences with their rawness. But the realism comes at a cost. Altman insists that the blood effects look authentic. Not glossy, but grim. Not theatrical, but clinical. So the makeup team uses thick, practical mixtures that resemble actual clotting blood. The smell under hot lights becomes overwhelming. Extras faint. Crew members step outside between takes to avoid nausea. The heat inside the tent amplifies the discomfort. When the cast slices through prosthetic flesh, the sticky mixture sprays across faces, gowns, and instruments. It feels disturbingly real. Viewers praise the authenticity, but they never see the physical toll on those filming the scenes. What looks like dark comedy is built on genuine sensory stress behind the lens. Fact number 8. The famous still scene was created on the spot. The iconic image of Hawkeye and Trapper operating a homemade still becomes one of the movie's most beloved details. Yet it is never in the script. Altman walks onto the set. One morning notices an unused supply cabinet and announces that the characters need a still. He orders the props team to build one in minutes, using tubes, valves, and random medical parts. The actors improvise the entire scene. They test drinks, joke about hygiene, and behave like soldiers, numbing themselves through absurdity. The moment feels natural because it emerges directly from the boredom and stress that hangs over the set. Viewers assume it is clever writing. It is not. It is pure improvisation capturing the chaotic survival humor of wartime life. Now, fact number 7. Sally Kellerman breaks down after recording her final scene. Sally Kellerman delivers one of the film's most emotionally exposed performances, but the process wears her down. The scene where Houlihan confronts the cruelty around her demands intense vulnerability. Altman pushes for a raw moment. Not controlled emotion, but genuine cracking. After multiple takes, Kellerman steps outside the tent and breaks down in tears. Crew members comfort her. She later explains that the role forces her to confront her own fears and insecurities. When Altman sees the playback, he realizes he captures something rare, a moment where character and actor fracture in the same breath. Audiences feel Houlihan's humanity because Kellerman gives far more of herself than she intends. The emotional cost stays with her long after production ends. Fact number 6. The film's ending almost never happens. MASH ends with a surreal twist, as a loudspeaker announces that the war is over and the characters must pack up their insanity and move on. But late in production, Altman still does not know how to end the film. Not closure, but drift. Not finality, but continuation. The studio pressures him for a conventional ending. He refuses. He wants a finale that feels abrupt and absurd, just like real military orders. Then the idea strikes. Use the PA system as the final narrative voice. A simple announcement ends the chaos. The crew records the line quickly as a test. Altman loves it. Suddenly, the entire film snaps into place. What begins as a last-minute experiment becomes one of the most memorable anti-endings in 70s cinema. Fact number 5. The cast creates their own subculture on set. Life on the MASH set grows so strange that the cast forms its own miniature society. Long shooting days blend into nights. Improvised scenes run endlessly. The actors begin living like actual surgeons trapped in a surreal war zone. They create rituals, private jokes, small rebellions. Some actors sleep in their tents between takes. Others decorate their spaces with props from previous scenes. The line between reality and performance blurs. Altman encourages this atmosphere. He wants exhaustion tension and gallows humor to seep into every frame. What audiences later praise as authenticity is partly the result of actors losing themselves inside this chaotic, invented community. The emotional fatigue you feel on screen is not acting, it is immersion, and it becomes one of the film's secret weapons. Fact number 4. The role of Trapper John almost goes to a completely different actor. Before Elliot Gould steps into the role, producers consider several other actors. The studio wants a cleaner, more conventional performer, someone who can deliver jokes without challenging the director's authority. But Altman fights for Gould. He sees something dangerous, something unpredictable, not safe, but electric. Still, the tension between Gould and Altman nearly costs him the role midway through production. After the attempted director firing scandal producers briefly consider replacing him. But Altman refuses. He insists Gould's volatility is the character, the frustration, the cynicism, the sharp humor. Everything audiences love about Trapper emerges from that unstable creative tension. Had another actor taken the role, MASH would feel entirely different. The film's bite comes from Gould's raw friction, not polished charm. Fact number 3. The film's dark humor starts a cultural shift. When MASH premieres, critics are shocked. War films usually glorify sacrifice or highlight heroism. MASH does neither. Not noble, but irreverent. not patriotic but confrontational. Its humor is sharp and often disturbing. It forces viewers to confront the absurdity of military life. Some audiences walk out, others cheer. Younger viewers especially embrace the new tone. The film becomes a catalyst for a cultural shift during a time of rising anti-war sentiment. University screenings erupt in discussion. Critics later identify MASH as a turning point where American cinema begins rejecting the myth of clean, righteous war. It opens the door for dark, satirical takes that follow in later decades. The cultural impact grows far beyond what the studio expects. Fact number 2. Many actors do not realize they are in satire until weeks into shooting. Altman's approach is so loose that some cast members believe they are making a straightforward war drama. They arrive expecting emotional intensity and realism. They get confusion, improvisation, sudden jokes, shifts in tone. Several actors later admit they do not understand the comedic style until halfway through filming. Altman does not explain it. He wants instinct and reaction, not overthinking. The strange atmosphere creates natural awkwardness, which works perfectly on screen. Characters who seem confused or frustrated are often played by actors who genuinely feel lost. This accidental method shapes the film's unpredictable rhythm. What viewers interpret as deliberate satire is partly spontaneous emotional response from performers trying to navigate a production that refuses to follow conventional storytelling rules. Fact number 1. The film becomes a hit despite the studio believing it will fail. 20th Century Fox expects MASH to collapse. Test screenings confuse executives. They think audiences will reject the overlapping dialogue, the crude jokes, and the cynical tone. They nearly dump the film in a small release. But early festival audiences react with explosive energy. Younger viewers relate to the anti-establishment message. Word of mouth spreads. The box office surges. MASH becomes one of the highest-earning films of the year and a defining work of 70s cinema. The studio scrambles to claim credit. Yet the success comes from everything they tried to stop. Altman's rebellion, the chaos, the experimentation, the risks. MASH triumphs precisely because it refuses to obey Hollywood logic. Bonus fact: the crew never expects the film to inspire a massive TV series. During production, no one imagines that MASH will spark one of the most successful television shows in history. The film feels too strange, too rough, too chaotic to translate into weekly storytelling. Cast and crew assume it will be a cult oddity, not a cultural juggernaut. When the TV adaptation launches years later, even Altman is stunned by its scale. The series becomes a monumental success, reaching millions and reshaping American television. The irony is striking. A film built on rebellion, improvisation, and controlled disorder gives birth to one of the most structured and beloved shows ever made. The legacy that emerges is larger than anything the filmmakers dream of.